Hello, welcome to the West Ham Way YouTube. Myself, Mark Carlaw, and Riley Finch. Riley, we've come off a very good result in the FA Cup. Said Benrahma scoring a goal for West Ham. Is it fair to say that he's West Ham's player of the season so far? Would you say?
I mean, yeah, you're not really picking out of a big bunch there, to be fair, mate. But yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, I think we've seen a different side this season. A different side of Said, which is a terrible one. But I think last season he definitely increased his numbers a lot. Obviously, first season I think he got one goal and a couple assists at West Ham. Really underwhelmed by his performance. Last year, I think he did really, really well, numbers wise. But this year, I think if you put the numbers even aside, even though they are quite good, you've seen a different Benrahma. He's more keen to drive at people. He's more keen to sort of take that shot from outside the box. And yeah, most of the time he doesn't score it, but it's always good to see players actually taking that shot. The amount of times we've seen West Ham try and fucking walk the ball in, and you're just thinking, why not have a crack? Why not have a shot? So it's encouraging to see players like that. And the fact that he is able to perform pretty much every time he's called upon when he's being treated the way he's been treated, I think is also a testament to his character. After the match yesterday, he sent a message to the supporters. I do think he is pissed off with how he's been treated by Moyes, but I think he does see all the support he gets from the fans, all the people. If I was Benrahma and I was looking on Twitter, which who knows if that's what he does, but the amount of people who are annoyed that he doesn't start, the amount of people praising when he does well, I think that is encouragement enough that he keeps performing. So yeah, I would say he's probably our best performer of the season so far. Absolutely, mate.
Absolutely. I think, like you say, mate, I just think that he adds something that others can't. There's not many players that have that ability to run at players, and also he's got a good shot on him. He's shown that time and time again. And when you're up against it, when you're really struggling for goals and struggling for confidence, these are the sort of players you need in your side. Someone that can just get hold of the ball and just do something. Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, he did have a bit. It was a great strike, and I think the wind and the weather kind of helped the situation. But at the end of the day, like you just said, if you don't shoot, you're not going to score goals, and if you don't, you're not going to win a raffle if you don't buy a ticket. At the end of the day, that's what he did. He just thought, right, I'm going to have a go, and why not? And it won us the game. I actually think you're right. I think it's a testament to his character. He comes across very well, very likable guy. I think he's coping with this whole Moyes treatment really well. It's almost, I think, as well. I don't know if you've seen, or actually, we talked about this actually before we was recording. You have seen the Moyes comments after the game. It's almost as though that David Moyes is sort of conceding that. I think a little bit now. I think he kind of in the questions a lot was about Benrahma, and usually, when I say usually, all of the time, even if Benrahma puts in a good performance, even if he scores a goal, Moyes always seems to find a reason to call him out for something and dig him out for something. And even when and collectively as a team, when we play badly, for some reason, Benrahma seems to be the one he points the finger at every week. But this week, I think was the first time ever David Moyes was actually encouraging to Said Benrahma. He was saying that I said I think Said does this in different games, and he's come on off the bench and he's been an impact. Blah, 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 blah. Thankfully, Said did that for us today. I could easily have started Said, but we changed the system. But his impact today was excellent. We were actually going to play Benrahma as one of the strikers, and we were thinking about going to do that. I think I can play Said actually in several positions. In the end, I decided to bring him on, and it was great. It was a terrific goal, and he almost made another. I think it was offside. I think actually he might have possibly just been offside when he went through. So it's almost like Moyes he's finally listened a little bit. He sort of thought, how about stop calling the guy out, stop having a little dig at him. He doesn't need it, and he needs a bit of a pat on the back. And fair play to Said Benrahma, because as you say, mate, the fans are behind him, and I think he does know that, because his language kind of and deals in a way. He mentioned it recently in an interview, saying, "I hear the fans singing my name, and it means a lot to me." I think that's a slight dig at the manager, personally, a little bit of an under. I'm getting encouragement from somewhere, not him, but from them. They're encouraging me, and maybe Moyes has listened. Overall, then, mate, what's your, obviously we're feeling positive. I don't want to make this negative. What's your feelings at the way Moyes has treated Benrahma? Do you think it's as bad as fans are saying, and possibly I'm leaning towards, or do you think it's actually he actually just helping? It's just coming across worse than it actually is.
I mean, I thought maybe in the first year it was just a bit of tough love, but at this point it's bullying, mate. I mean, it's like, the first year he was always coming off the bench, and he was actually quite a good impact sub, but there's like you can't give a player one game to start and say, well, if you don't play well in this game, you're out, you're gone. Especially if it's a new signing, you know, you need a little run of games to say, well, you know, he doesn't really play well in this position, blah blah blah. You know, second year he got a big run of games and he had a really good goal. So, like I said, he looked a different player. This year, again, Moyes is hesitant to start him, is hesitant to use him, and he always digs him out all the time. I think last night he didn't mean what he said. You know, I realistically think that he was just covering his own arse, because he realistically, in a game with one goal where it's scored by Said Benrahma when he's on the pitch for 20 minutes, how can he possibly say anything else? You know, I feel like he was just covering his own arse with that. The fact that he basically tried to make it seem like, well, not being funny, mate, but I subbed him on and it was an impact sub. So really, I should be getting all the credit for that. That's kind of what I get from Moyes. You know, he didn't say, do you know what, in fairness, I probably should have started him and maybe I'm a bit unfair to him. But I wouldn't even say that that's just a Benrahma thing. I would say, realistically, is the weakest part of Moyes' game is substitutions and man management. His man management is awful. You know, I don't know how we've had a squad that's been so tight and so good with morale with him at the helm, because the amount of issues he causes in terms of things like, you know, like think about how frustrated would you be as Areola? You've left PSG, you've been brought in at West Ham. You see Fabianski playing as crap as he's playing, and you're not getting a chance. You know, you see Souček putting in fucking 1 out of 10 performances every week, can't put a pass together. Every time you've been on the pitch, you've got a man of the match performance. You're Flynn Downs, and you can't get a game. Yesterday, he couldn't get a game against Brentford's second side. You know, his man management is absolutely piss poor, and it's the same with the youth as well. You know, I honestly think if Rice was in the youth at the moment, would have taken him a lot longer to get into the West Ham side than when he, you know, under Pellegrini just got chucked into and it was a similar position as well. We were playing really shit, relegation battle. Rice got chucked in, got a run of games under Pellegrini, and then Moyes kind of gave him, you know, his solidified position in the team, and we started to play really well. Same with Johnson. I just, his man management is so poor for me, and you know, I think Said is probably the shining example of that. But there's so many other players as well you could use to sort of show that.
I think, and I want to touch on what you've mentioned about the youth, because I know we've talked about this prior, Riley, and you said this is something you really want to talk about. And I think you're right. This isn't just about Benrahma. This isn't just about Flynn Downs, which you're right. I think the man management of those players has been very poor. It must be confusing as a footballer if you're being told, here's your chance, go and show me what you can do. You go and put in a 10 out of 10 performance, and then you're not getting a look in the side again. And then the player ahead of you is playing very poor. And you must be wondering, what can I do? He definitely has. There's no two ways about it. He's favoured players, the players he trusts, and there's certain players he just doesn't trust. We talk about it long enough with Souček. He's clearly in that trust bracket, and he will do whatever he can, Moyes, to get him in that starting 11. Even if he's playing terribly, he has to try and fit him in somewhere. He'd rather do that than just put in another player that's actually playing very well. I don't know why, but the youth side of it, like you said, it is a bit confusing. I kind of understand. Look, we're in a difficult situation, West Ham, at the moment in the league. It's Premier League's very tough, unforgiving, and sometimes you don't want to necessarily throw in an 18-year-old for them to get ripped to shreds and then ruin their confidence. So I do understand there's a little bit of a slight aspects you need to think about. You can't just go, oh, they're playing well for under 18s, get them in. I do appreciate there's a little bit more to it than that. However, you're right in what you were saying when you talk about Ollie Scholes, who's come in, played in the Europa Conference League, looked outstanding, looked very, very good. His deliveries and crosses was excellent. And then we play away at Leeds, and you're playing Kira at left back and looking awful, absolutely awful. I mean, I genuinely don't understand that decision. I'm still sitting here scratching my head. I can't work out why you'd have Emerson, you just bought for £13 million from Chelsea. You've got Aaron Cresswell, who both are fit and ready to play, and you decide to play a defender that plays at right back and centre back and has been playing badly, and you decide he is the man to go and play at left back. And let's be honest, he was awful against Leeds, really, really poor. And I don't really blame the player, really, because he's probably just thinking, well, I'm well out of position anyway. I don't know what I'm doing here. It is a bit confusing. If you're struggling to find a decent left back, then surely Ollie Scholes is screaming, look, you have to give him a chance. But then, as I've just said, I do appreciate that. Do you really want to put a lad in and say, right, here you go, you've got to play against Wolves at Molineux. This is a must-win game. And you're up against Traore today. Try and mark him, and you're probably thinking, good God, this. I appreciate that might be too much for a certain player at a certain age. You might be thinking, because if he gets ripped to shreds and we get hammered 3-0, it could ruin him for the rest of his career. Do you know what I mean? Really derail. So I do appreciate there's two sides of it, but
No, I do think that people are patient with the youth. I think people will understand that, if you do chuck it. I mean, look again, Ngakia, he got chucked in against Liverpool and put in an absolute 10 out of 10 performance when we had injury issues and things like that. I don't understand why, we don't roll the dice. I mean, they're in the youth system for a reason.
Yeah.
If they can't break through in a crap team in a relegation battle with injuries all over the place and players performing, just terribly every week, then they're never going to get in the side. I think it's honestly more damaging to not just say, look, not being funny, this is a must-win game. It's a lot of pressure, but here's your chance. It's a lot less damaging to say that than it is to basically look in like, you're the youth team. 10 out of 10 games they've won this season, 30 points they've got, and not a single one of them has got a look in on that side. I mean, look at Harrison Ashby, mate. Why do you think he's leaving? In an absolutely crap West Ham team, he can't even get a nod at right back. Longelo, he's been chucked out on loan, and when he comes back, Okafleck, he's just been recalled from Swansea. We won't see him for the rest of the season. Elise, I thought I would be crying out for Elise this season. You got Dawson and Caro played absolutely crap. You have Elise brought in. I think he could have done a decent job there. I don't understand. Like, I do get it in terms of, like, you can't just chuck these young players in, but if they can't break through now, when are they ever going to break through?
I do think you raise a good point, and I do think that when we've seen it before, when we have experimented or been forced into dipping into the youth team to fill in a role, it tends to work out quite well for us. I remember it happened pretty similar with Ben Johnson when he got introduced to the first team. He did a good job. I think he was kind of brought in because we were really struggling for numbers, and he just had to get in and play, and did very well. Declan Rice, of course, the same. Broke in and did very, very well. I do agree with you. I do sit there and think. I look at some of these players and thinking, well, what's the harm? And dare I say it, with the Harrison Ashby situation, we know that it's likely. We're looking very, very likely that he's going to Newcastle this month. But we've been so poor at right back this season. It's been a real troublesome area for the team. Why not play Ashby with the belief of thinking, well, look, play him, get him playing, because I mean he can't be any worse than what we've had. I mean, I know I've just said in a previous video that Soufal's been playing well, and he played well against Leeds. It kind of reminded me when he first joined the club. That aside, it's been really bad. Our right back's been a real troublesome area. Why not just play Ashby? And let's be honest, if he got a run in the team and was playing well every week, the chances are he probably would stay. Because if we said to him, well, to be honest with you, Harrison, this is your position now. You're actually our new right back, and we're happy to sit down with you and offer you 25 grand a week or 30 grand a week if you want for a new deal. And he might start thinking, do you know what? Why bother going to Newcastle? I'm playing. It does confuse me. I do wonder as well with like Ben Johnson. I appreciate he did play yesterday. He didn't play overly well, to be honest. I didn't think he was that great. He was okay. I mean, we didn't concede, so I'm pleased with all the defenders, really. But I didn't think he was brilliant. But it's almost like with him, because he's having a contract dispute, he doesn't play him because of that. That's what it seems to me. I don't know whether that's the case, but he's not playing Ashby. He's not really been playing Johnson. Certain players don't really get a look in if they're having behind-the-scenes issues, with getting agreed. Well, if that's the case, then why are we playing Declan Rice? You could argue, if he's refusing to sign a contract and wants to leave and publicly basically saying he wants to leave the football club, then why is he then playing him? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want Declan Rice to be played. I'm not saying drop him for God's sake. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is why not play then Johnson? Why not play Ashby? He's still a West Ham player. We're still paying his wages. He's still training with the team every day. He's fit. He's a good right back. And as I've said, if we'd been playing him the majority of the season, we might not be having this conversation around going to Newcastle, because he'd probably be starting to think, well, I'm making it now as a Premier League player at West Ham. I don't really need to go anywhere. I think that's one of the key reasons he's leaving, because he doesn't really get an opportunity.
I think in recent history, there's only one player I can remember that was heavily judged by the fan base and sort of has a little bit ruined his career, and that's Mipo Odebeke. That's the only player I can think of who was kind of, the fans were calling for him to come in. He was the only player I can think of that's kind of was chucked in at the deep end, and then he sort of went on loan. But was he actually that good? He went on loan to Doncaster and didn't do too well there, and Huddersfield. But obviously the jury's still out on him. But that's the only player I can remember who got chucked in at the deep end and is kind of now maybe feeling the repercussions of it a little bit. But other than that, I just don't understand why we don't roll the dice. We're in a crap position. We can't be spending money on, Emerson is our record signing as a fullback, £13 million. We've got a youth system for a reason. We might as well just say, Longelo, you've been playing well at Birmingham. See what you want to do.
Well, let's be honest. In the grand scheme of it, I mean, it's probably, I don't understand harsh Emerson. I'd rather have not bought Emerson and then just promoted Ollie Scholes into the more senior setup, because one, it wouldn't have cost us a penny. We'd have had £30 million to spend elsewhere, which would probably been more useful. And like you say, these players are delivering week in, week out. I mean, look at the under 18s. I think we're top of the league, and I think it's 10 wins in 10 if I remember looking at the tape. It's amazing, you know, really. I think plus 20 odd goal difference, maybe more. It's ridiculous. They're doing really, really well. Look, I know it's a massive step up. I appreciate Premier League 2 level to Premier League they're worlds apart. I know they are. And I do appreciate just playing a few good games in that league doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a brilliant Premier League player. But Ollie Scholes has proven to be decent. He's looked very good in the UEFA Conference. It just seems a bit strange to me. But obviously, get back to the point of Benrahma, though, mate. It's really good for him. I'm really pleased for him personally. It's good that he's delivering consistently, and he's handling this Moyes treatment very well, I think, because there's a lot of players I think would, one, be very disheartened by it, and two, they probably wouldn't want to play and their form would be rubbish. But it's almost like he's kind of just, it's like it's bouncing off of him. Do you think, what would you, if in your opinion, what do you think Benrahma's thinking in himself? Do you think he's happy at the club and not bothered by the treatment, or do you really think this is getting to him?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say, really. I never, you don't see it from his body language. You don't really see him ever sort of call out the manager. You know, he's not on Piers Morgan, sort of like, you know, calling out David Moyes and like, you know, talking about the manager and stuff. So as far as I know, he must be okay with it. But I can only think that maybe if a club like Brentford or Brighton or like, you know, that sort of club came in for him and said, well, you're going to play week in, week out, I think he'd probably take it. I think he does actually love the club. We kind of gave him his big break. I can't imagine he's too happy with Moyes, to be honest, but maybe he's just, you know, sitting there and thinking to himself, well, I'll last longer than you at West Ham anyway. So I don't know.
I actually do agree with that. I think there's a part of him probably thinking that as well.
But he never seems to, you know, have scuffles with Moyes. I mean, Moyes always seems to give him the pat on the back and he sort of just like gets on with it. But he's a very disciplined young lad. And I do think that, to be fair, he's handling it very well. And I do think he's happy at West Ham, but I think if he got the offer to go to Brentford, secretly, I think he'd be like, yeah, I'd probably go back there, to be fair.
I totally agree. Couldn't agree more with that. I think that I do think he hasn't. I do think if he has got a problem with Moyes, he's handling it very well. He isn't really letting it show that it bothers him, even if it is behind the scenes. And I think he's just answering him really well. I think to get criticised pretty much week in, week out, and yet keep coming on and scoring penalties, scoring goals, and being our most dangerous threat. He gets dropped. Everyone's going, why is he dropped? He comes on the bench. He doesn't look annoyed. If anything, he looks vibrant and up for it. I think that's the best way to shut your manager up, or shut any critics up, really. And I'm really pleased for him, and it's nice to see. And long may it continue. And I'm pleased, like you say, I think maybe it did force Moyes' hand a little bit yesterday. He couldn't really call him out for anything. I just hope it's a bit of a change now for Moyes and with Benrahma. I hope he starts realising that he actually is a good player and he's got a good player on his hands, and start giving him a bit more encouragement, because I think it annoys the fans as well. That it's winds the fans up, keep reading every week that every time we lose a game, for some reason Benrahma's the reason we lost it, which is just so harsh. But overall, mate, I'm really, really pleased for him.
Super Said Benrahma, mate.
Exactly. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.